Hey, what's going on, everybody? Long time no talk. This obviously is not Patagonia, where I was originally planning on going, but COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything, just like it did for everyone else. So we were actually in Miami en route for Argentina, and all the travel bans started.
That this is a global pandemic.
Against non-essential travel globally.
Is the State Department in the U.S. now telling Americans not to travel abroad?
So after a long hiatus of just kind of sitting around, feeling sorry for myself, and eating a lot of double stuffed Oreos and Ben & Jerry's, I decided it's time to finally get back out and start doing more. So with all the social distancing and travel restrictions in place, I thought it would be best to try and look at my backyard or within a few hour radius of my house. And I started looking into what is called the Blue Trail system here in Connecticut. Now, the Blue Trails, there's about 825 miles of Blue Trails that are maintained by a trail association. And one of the trails that I've seen quite a bit due to my mountain biking and hiking and whatnot is the Tunxis Trail. And that travels from Bristol up to the Massachusetts border. So before I get too far into the actual trail and my thoughts about it, let me just cut to it so you can actually see the trail, and then I will follow up with my thoughts, also follow up with some of the gear that I used, and what's coming up in the future. Here we go. and that's the Massachusetts border. So it is an overnight hike for me. It's about 40 miles, 60 kilometers, depending on how you do your measurements. It was a relatively easy hike. I wouldn't say that if you're totally green and just getting started out, it's something you necessarily want to do. But it started in Bristol at the old Marsh Pond Dam. And then from there, it goes up pretty much straight up towards the Massachusetts line. The whole first day, the first 20 miles, it was okay. It went through a lot of places that was logging. It went through a lot of places that were metropolitan water district. It was kind of flat. It wasn't interesting, really. Good exercise, good to get out, but not terribly interesting terrain. As you can see, I didn't even really throw the drone up much because honestly the canopy was so thick, I couldn't. It was just, you were walking in the woods. Everything looks similar. Now I've walked enough and hiked enough in Connecticut to know that one of the nice things to see are the rock walls and going to fields and everything else. And this trail just didn't really seem to have a lot of that. It was a lot of fire roads. It was a lot of road walking. It just wasn't really what I wanted, at least on the first day. Now on the second day, when I got up towards Barkhamsted Reservoir, it was much prettier. The terrain was a little bit more varied. There were a couple more viewpoints. It's just a better part of the state. It's a better part of the trail. It's definitely something that I would probably maybe just do that as a day hike, go from around Ski Sundown area north to Massachusetts. That area is a lot more worth it to me. Now, all that being said, the next week, which will be in my next video, I actually went and did Mohawk Trail, which is a little bit further north and a little bit further to the west. Well, I shouldn't say further north, a little bit further to the west. And that part of the state is a little bit more hilly, definitely a lot more dynamic terrain, and a little bit better taste of what to expect in the northwest corner of Connecticut. Now, I don't really want to totally bash this trail because it's not a bad trail. There's a couple things that I think are probably pretty good about it. Number one, it's super accessible, really easy to get to. I mean, you just have someone drop you off at the trailhead, pick you up at the trailhead. It's not like you're driving hours off into the middle of the wilderness and you're not quite sure how you're going to get out there, how you're going to get back. Super, super easy to get to. Number two, it is relatively short. Now, it is 40 miles, roughly 40 miles, 60 kilometers. I was able to do it in 2 days. I'm pretty tall. I move at a pretty decent pace. Honestly, maybe 3 days for most people wouldn't have really a problem doing it. You don't have to be in great shape. I was tired, but honestly, it's because I've been sitting around doing nothing for so long. But if you've been moving a little bit, it wouldn't have been that bad. But I did 20 miles a day, back to back, no real problem doing it. And the other thing is it's probably a really good starter trail because it's super easy to just bail if you need to. There's roads all over the place that you're crossing, and it's just a come pick me up, I'm not feeling it, and you're out of there. So, it just, the fact that you have that safety net, which is kind of a good and a bad thing, because sometimes hiking is all about just pushing through and persevering. But if you really need to, you can get out, especially if you're a little bit nervous and not quite too sure about it. Now, as far as the bad things, there's kind of three main things that I didn't really like. The first day was just, it was boring. It was just fire roads and walking in the woods, 20 miles, just walking, and not really having any varied terrain at all. The other thing that was really not so good about this is it was really noisy. So the advantage of being near roads so you can bail out if you need to was also the disadvantage of hearing engine brakes while you're walking down a path in the middle of the woods, or so you think, and you can hear just trucks and cars and sirens and motorcycles, and yeah, that kind of sucks. It's just not my thing. It is what it is. And then the final and last thing is that the terrain just wasn't that varied. One of my favorite things is walking along, 10, 20, 30, 40 miles and watching how the terrain just constantly changes. And it's amazing. Whereas this trail, it just didn't change that much. It just kind of felt like it was the same path the whole way through. Still good to get out, but it just wasn't quite what I was hoping for. So overall, if you're looking to try out maybe doing an overnight hike and you just want to dip your toes in it and you're maybe not sure if you're in the best of shape, there's only about 5,000 feet of elevation change over 40 miles, so pretty darn easy as far as elevation change goes. This is a really good trail to just try out and get started on. Again, easy to bail out, easily accessible. It's got a lot of things going for it, and it's still very, very pretty. I guess I've just been spoiled because I've seen so much varied terrain over the years, and also been out mountain biking and hiking all over the northwest corner of Connecticut for years, that I thought this didn't really do a great job representing the best that Connecticut had to offer, we'll just say. Now let's get into some of the new gear that I have for this hike. Now, one of the first things I actually got that was brand new was a Z-Packs Free Duo tent. Now, this is a new tent for them as well as a new tent for me. I was looking for something a little bit lighter, but more importantly was something a little bit longer. I am freakishly tall, 6'7", almost 2 meters. And the problem I always have is my feet are on one end, my head are on the other, and they're touching the sides of the tent. Now, this tent was supposed to be a little bit longer, and also being a 2-person tent, you can kind of just angle yourself a little bit and get a little bit more room. It isn't longer for me, at least the way the sides come up. I mean, you can see my pitch was kind of, it wasn't the best. But the way the sides come up, my feet were still touching and my head was still touching. Now, that being said, it was still pretty light. It was still pretty easy to put up. I haven't really used it in any kind of extreme weather yet, so I can't tell you if it's going to necessarily work out well in that. It is semi-transparent, so there's definitely some light coming through. Not a big deal. I always wear like a hat over my eyes and my head and stuff like that when I'm sleeping anyways. So sun comes up, you are getting a lot of light in there right away. And it is also pretty noisy. It just is a noisy tent. It just, the fabric's noisy, so if you're touching it, if you're moving it, it is noisy. If you were sharing that with somebody else, yeah, you probably really annoy them if you're getting in and out of the tent. I mean, it was just me, so I don't really care. But it is a little bit noisy. Overall, I like the tent. I'm going to keep using it for now. The REI quarter dome, which I've used in the past, I was actually really, really happy with. And other than the fact that it wasn't quite as long as I wanted. And weight-wise, this is definitely lighter, but not like hugely lighter. So I'm not really quite sure where I'm going to end up with at the very end. I don't know if I'm going to stay with the Z-Pack or go back to the REI quarter dome. Price-wise, I mean, the Z-Packs is substantially more expensive than the REI. So I'm not, to me, I don't know if it's necessarily worth the money at all, especially because it doesn't meet what I was hoping for. But it is light, and so far so good, and I'm going to stick it out, and I'm now invested in it, so I feel like I want to get my money's worth and give it a real shot. And, you know, I'll use a few more hikes, and I'll keep giving feedback on how it works out, especially if we get into any inclement weather. So, all right. And one of the other things I switched over was to the Snow Peak Mini Solo Titanium Cook Set. I wanted to get away from just using a jet boil because I wanted to have a mug that I can drink tea out of, as well as like a cooking pot on top of it, and still keep my weight down. So I think weight-wise, with the little cup, the pot, stove, gas canister, you know, everything that goes in there, it is measurably lighter than the jet boil. I don't necessarily know if it's much better. Stability is definitely an issue. That sucked, but I did end up getting it back. But I still do like the idea of just having everything in a very compact form factor. So I'm going to keep using it, and, you know, jury's still out if it's going to stay inside the kit and it's going to be my main piece. But so far, I like it. We'll see how it does with extra people, 2 people, 3 people. I don't know if it's going to make a lot of sense, but it really is a solo cook set. And for me, so far, so good. I just need to be a little bit wiser on where I actually place it. And the last big shift for me were my shoes. So I had some other trail running shoes. I've been having issues just with my feet and ankles and knees since last September. I hurt myself running, just doing a regular run, nothing major. I didn't roll my ankle or anything else like that. And my ankle started bothering me. And they told me it was a sprain when I finally got it looked at after a couple weeks. I'm going, what the heck? I didn't roll it. I didn't step off of something. So anyway, I kind of took it easy. I missed out on a really great hike I was supposed to do because of that injury. And it took months for me to really start getting back to mostly normal. Then when I went in to do Hong Kong, still new shoes, or same shoes, I should say. And by the last day, my knees started bothering me. That being said, it was the first time in a long time I'd done that many miles back to back to back to back. It was a lot of elevation change. So I kind of just chalked it up to possibly being a little bit out of shape. Maybe my body wasn't quite ready for it. But then I still just kept having like knee issues and some other issues. Finally went to a podiatrist and had him take a look at it, got some x-rays, and it turns out my arches are collapsing. Getting freaking old sucks. So I have to be a little bit more conscientious about what kind of shoes I have going forward. Now, trail runners in general are pretty stable, so it's not that big of a deal, but the trail runners I had been using, maybe they didn't quite fit my feet quite right. So I moved to the Ultra Lone Peak 4.0s. They were on sale, so I thought I'd give them a shot before I ended up trying to get the 4.5s or whatever is out nowadays. And, they're a lot wider because that's another issue I have is like my toes, they really love each other a lot. So I kind of get like blisters in between my toes because they get smushed up in the front. So a little bit wider up front, they say the foot-shaped shoes. And they had good stability, and it's also a zero drop, which I thought would maybe help a little bit with my gait and maybe just get my body in a more natural motion. I like them. They worked out pretty good. I don't think the durability is necessarily the best. I've only got maybe about 100 miles on them, and they're kind of like falling apart in different places. But my feet like them, and my ankles like them, and my knees like them. So if I got to swap out shoes a little bit more often, but everything else seems to be working out okay, I'm good with that. We're good. So so far, good. Ultra Lone Peak 4.0s. I know some people say that it takes a little bit of time for your body to get used to them just because they're a zero drop shoe. My body liked them right away. So I'm going to stick with that. Don't see any reason to change it because it's the first time in a while that my body has felt really good and I haven't had any knee, ankle, hip, whatever issues that kind of go along with collapsing arches when you start losing some stability or whatever else. Everything seems to be good. So yeah. Now, as far as food goes, I kind of graze the entire time. I have my little waist strap pouches that are just kind of loaded up with food. My favorite thing are Cliff Shot blocks. I don't know, I like them a lot. They're little like gummy type bear things. They've got salt and sugar and everything your body needs when you're exercising, and some of them have caffeine in it. So like the black cherry I like because of the caffeine, gives you a little shot if you need it to kind of keep you going. And caffeine also helps with cramping. So if you're cramping, I don't usually get up with hiking, but I do use those a lot for like when I'm doing mountain biking, like really intense mountain biking, my legs start quitting on me. Definitely get a little bit of caffeine in there. And then the salted watermelon is like my jam. And then the margarita is also like, that's where it's at. And I get trail mix with nuts and seeds. That is just loaded with calories and it's what my body needs. And a couple pieces of fresh fruit. And I was lucky that my daughter had made banana bread, and that definitely came with me, and it was where I was at. So as far as dehydrated food, it has been a long time since I had like Mountain House or any of these other kind of dehydrated foods. So I'm going to kind of keep a record of this stuff so I can kind of narrow down which ones I really like so I can keep buying them and bringing them, because it is much better than having ramen noodles. Which has been my staple for a long time. I've got the money now, because they're definitely a lot more expensive than ramen noodles. I got the money now. I will drop the money on a good dehydrated meal, especially after I've had a few of them that are actually really good. I don't know if I'm just starving to death, but they're tasty. So the first one I had was the Alpine Air spicy sausage pasta. Yeah, it was pretty freaking good. And I know like you go on like REI's website or whatever else, and the reviews for it are like, I'm like, what do you want? For a dehydrated meal compared to like a ramen noodle or something like that, it was really, really good. And so then at dinner time, I had the Mountain House chili mac and cheese. Chili's not my thing. I'll eat it if there's nothing else there, but I have choices, and my choice is not to have chili again. So I do have a couple more of those bags of the dehydrated chili mac and cheese, and when I go hiking with someone else, I will be sure to donate that to them because I'm not feeling it anymore. Anyway, but those were the two dehydrated meals I had, and then of course I have oatmeal in the morning. Gotta have my tea. Everyone gives me a hard time about the honey. because I don't bring like a normal sized jar of honey. It's like 12 ounces of honey because why not? It's calories. I put on everything and it's amazing. So that wraps up the Tunxis Trail. If you have any other questions, let me know below. I'll do my best to answer them. I think it was a good trail. It was fun to do. It was a great starter trail. It was easily accessible. It was good for me because I am completely out of shape, or I was completely out of shape. I'm getting in better shape again now. I know this is a challenging time for everybody, and I am super blessed to be able to have this stuff in my backyard. And a lot of you guys do have something similar to what I have in my backyard as well. And, you know, you just got to kind of search for it. And some of it will be good. Some of it will be okay. No matter what you do, I think you feel like this level of accomplishment when you get done with a hike, even if it's not the best hike in the world, it just makes you feel good. And it was definitely something I needed. My spirits have definitely been lifted after having weeks of being just there and not really doing much. So yeah, I've got a couple other hikes coming up. I did the Mohawk Trail already. That'll be in my next video. And then I actually have another hike going into the Adirondacks next week, I believe. And I think they're going to be, you know, I think I'll enjoy making them, and I'll enjoy sharing them with you guys. And hopefully it'll give you some inspiration, whether you do the exact same trail or find something similar. All the trails I'm going to be doing right now are going to be kind of on the shorter scale. When I say shorter, maybe 20 to 40 miles. So, you know, overnight, maybe 2 nights tops, just because I want to kind of save up my brownie points with my wife for bigger hikes down the line. I definitely have some big hikes that I was already planning on doing, and I have some big hikes I want to be doing soon. And once travel restrictions kind of loosen up, I will be out there doing them. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, I will talk to you later. Get out there and do more. See ya. Bye.